What up, Yang Gang? So Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, had a complete meltdown on CNN while being interviewed by Wolf Blitzer. And the nature of this meltdown was because she was asked some very direct and to the point questions on why she is failing the American people by cock blocking a long overdue stimulus that people needed 3 months ago to buy food, to keep utilities on, to prevent evictions. And she gives her reasons in this meltdown. So what I'd like to do for you is let's go through this. Let's go through this and let's see how Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, claiming to represent the poor, the working class, and what remains of the middle class, in what can only be described as a shambolic exercise in moronics. Let's hear what Madam Speaker, who claims to represent us, has to say in her defense for holding up an emergency UBI, even an emergency second one-time COVID relief check. That she knows full well millions of Americans are counting on. That this is life or death. Okay? This isn't a game. This is life or death. So let's dive into this a little bit. Let's get into it.
Many Americans are waiting in food lines for the first time in their lives. Can you look them in the eye, Madam Speaker, and explain why you don't want to accept the president's latest stimulus offer?
Well, because, thank you very much, Wolf, and I hope you'll ask the same question of the Republicans about why they don't really want to meet the needs of the American people.
Stop right there. Wolf Blitzer asked you, Nancy Pelosi, why you are holding up help, why you are blocking a stimulus for the people. He's asking you. He's asking you.
But let me say to those people, because all of my colleagues, we represent these people.
Very well. You represent these people. Well, I'm one of these people. I don't feel represented when I see everybody that I know around me suffering, facing, losing their housing, having utilities shut off as within a matter of a week or two, winter will be on our doorsteps. Okay? I mean, if you really represented us, you would have listened to Andrew Yang. You would have listened to Ro Khanna. You would have listened to Rashid Tlaib, who authored the Mint the Fucking Coin bill months ago. Months ago. And you didn't. But let's go on. Let's hear some more.
I have for over 30 years represented my constituents. I know what their needs are. I listen to them, and their needs are not addressed in the president's proposal. So when you say to me, why don't you accept theirs? Why don't they accept ours? Our legislation is there to do three things primarily: to honor our workers, honor our heroes, our healthcare workers, our police and fire first responders, our teachers, our transportation, sanitation, food workers, the people who make our lives work. We couldn't be doing what we're doing without them. Many of them have risked their lives so that to save lives, and now they will lose their jobs because Mitch McConnell says that the state.
Now, what the House Speaker is referring to here about all these municipal and state employees that are in danger of losing their jobs, she's referring to an amount that she wanted to see in the Democrat version of the stimulus bill or the COVID relief bill to go into state and municipal coffers due to a shortfall in revenue. Now, unlike the federal government, states and municipalities don't have the authorization to coin money. That power rests solely within the purview of Congress. Okay, the United States government is the only one that has the ability to direct the Federal Reserve to spend money into existence. Okay, states and municipalities have to rely on income tax, property tax, sales tax, taxes on homes, and those are taxes that are not possible to collect if the people that live in those municipalities and states don't have any money. You with me here? Okay. This is what she's talking about. Now, a UBI, like Andrew Yang proposed months ago when the COVID crisis first broke out, and he suggested that an emergency UBI until we could get through the pandemic of $2,000 a month for every American, that would have headed all of this off the pass, because if people had enough incomes to get by and survive, they'd be paying their utilities, they would be paying their, the local municipal and state taxes where they live, because they would have had the income to do it. They would have had the ability to function. Okay? UBI would have headed this off at the pass. But no, unfortunately, Andrew Yang, who was, a visionary and a problem solver who knew all this and suggested this, was just, not listened to. He was not listened to by Nancy Pelosi, the woman holding the most powerful position, in Congress right now, as Speaker of the House. Okay, let's hear what else she has to say.
States go bankrupt.
Excuse me for interrupting.
If states and municipalities go bankrupt, it's because the people living in them have no incomes and have no money. Let's play this again.
We're doing without them. Many of them have risked their lives so that to save lives, and now they will lose their jobs because Mitch McConnell says that the states go bankrupt.
Excuse me for interrupting,
the states go bankrupt.
Madam Speaker, but they really need the money right now.
Right now, things are the way they are with the states facing bankruptcy because the people have not had a universal basic income that was enough to live on and get through this pandemic. States are unable to meet obligations when their residents lack the income to be able to pay to live, to be able to pay their property taxes, anything, sales tax, you name it, income tax. UBI enacted 6 months ago, we're going into 7 months into this pandemic now. UBI enacted 6 months ago would have headed much of this off at the pass. Much.
And even members of
I
your own,
understand that, but
but even
if
members
you
of
ask
your
me
own
a
caucus,
question,
even members of your own caucus, Madam Speaker, want to accept this deal. $1.8 trillion. Congressman Ro Khanna, for example. Well, let me just quote Ro Khanna, a man you know well. I assume you admire him. He's a Democrat. And he just said this. He said, people in need can't wait until February. $1.8 trillion is significant and more than twice the Obama stimulus. Make a deal. Put the ball in McConnell court. So what do you say to Ro Khanna?
what I say to you is, I don't know why you're always an apologist. And many of your colleagues.
Nancy Pelosi has had a cushy career in politics, in Congress, for the better part of 60 years. 60 years. I'm 53 years old. She had begun her career over a decade before I was born. And I can't recall at any time during my voting age years of my life that she has done anything to help the poor, that she has done anything to help struggling people. I don't know what she's done for 60 years.
Apologist. What I say to you is, I don't know why you're always an apologist. And many of your colleagues apologize for the Republican position.
Now, right there, an apologist for the Republican position. What in the Sam Hill does that have to do with people starving, with people lining up, queuing up for mile-long lines at food banks, suffering utility shutoffs, suffering car repossessions so they don't even have a car to be able to get a job with when there's a job to go back to, maybe eventually sometime from somewhere, and suffering evictions from lack of income? What does any of this have to do? Do you think people struggling for their lives really care about anybody making apologia for any party? No, most people right now are fed up with the entire two-party system. They're tired. They're tired. People want solutions. We don't care about this triangulation and nonsense. I mean, what does this sick, twisted game of political one-upmanship have to do with doing what's best for the people? What's doing best for the people is putting money into every American's hands right now so that people can survive. This isn't a game. This is life and death. This is life and death. This isn't a game.
Ro Khanna, that's nice. That isn't what we're going to do, and nobody's waiting till February.
See that? Oh, Ro Khanna, that's nice. That isn't what we're going to do. This is what she's not going to do. She is not going to get on her horse and move to get direct cash payments into the people's hands as quickly as humanly possible and putting the ball into Mitch McConnell's court like Ro Khanna suggested. Because Nancy Pelosi knows it all. You know, I mean, she knows what's best for us. She knows what's best for people who don't know where their next meal is coming from right now.
Right. I want this very much now because people need help now. But
Madam Speaker, You are being paid overly generously to serve the people. The people waiting in those mile-long food pantry lines. And you're failing the people miserably. Failing.
Much now, because people need help now. But it's no use giving much now. That isn't what we're going to do, and nobody's waiting till February. I want this very much now.
Well, then if you want it very much now, then get on your horse, stop the games, stop the bullshit, contact the president's negotiators and tell them, look, let's do what's necessary to help the people with direct cash payments now. Let's have a meeting of the minds and let's at least get that done. If you really wanted it all that now, all that bad, then you would get on your horse and do it.
Because people need help now. But it's no use giving them a false thing just because the president wants to put a check with his name on it in the mail, that we should not be doing all we can to help people pay the rent, put food on the table, to enhance benefits, that they don't lose their jobs if they're state and local, that we're talking about the consequences of a pandemic.
I'm going to replay this bit again.
State and local, be doing all we can to help people pay the rent, put food on the table, to enhance benefits.
Enhanced benefits? Like what? Your miserable failure of a food stamp program that poor rural people without cars and people who are shut-ins, like here in Erie County, Pennsylvania, where I live, who couldn't use their enhanced benefits to buy food during the COVID shutdown. Because, why? Because Instacart delivery service, which was the only way available to many to be able to buy groceries, doesn't accept food stamps. Cash in a checking account or on a debit card would have circumvented that. So instead, people on food stamps, many who have no income at all. I mean, the food stamps is their only, quote, income. And then they couldn't use those food stamps. And that is an issue that, by the way, has yet to be resolved. Yet to be resolved. Let's do a slight recap here.
Name on it in the mail that we...
Okay, so what Nancy Pelosi is saying here is that she does not want President Trump to get credit for a check in the mail to every American who's struggling right now, to every American, period, if it has his name on it. Let's assess this. Starving homeless people who've lost everything don't care who gets credit for what. Okay? They don't. They care about being able to survive now. They care about not being evicted, not going hungry, not having their gas, their water, their electric, their internet, and their phone shut off right now. And with all due respect, Madam Speaker, they don't have your runway. Okay?
We should not be doing all we can to help people pay the rent, put food on the table, to enhance benefits, that they don't lose their jobs if they're state and local. We're talking about the consequences of a pandemic, the symptoms.
No, we are talking about the consequences of government ineptitude in the handling of the pandemic.
Of a problem that the president refuses to address,
but
and that is the coronavirus.
We know the
coronavirus.
problem out there, but there are millions of Americans who have lost their jobs. They can't pay the rent. Their kids need the food.
That's right, and that's what we're trying to get done.
$1.8 trillion. And the president just tweeted, stimulus, go big or go home. He wants even more right now. So why not work out a deal with him, and don't let the perfect, as they say here in Washington, be the enemy of the good.
Well, I will not let the wrong be the enemy of the right.
What's wrong with
Oh my God. The wrong be the enemy of the right. I fail to see how anybody can somehow justify that it is more right to let more people starve, let people die, literally die, from unremediated, abject poverty, from lack of income, jobs that aren't coming back, housing that's been lost, cars that have been repossessed, a complete lack of access to the basic stability and resources you need to survive to be able to eventually get a job, maybe. How is that right? How is that right?
and don't let the perfect, as they say here in Washington, be the enemy of the good.
Well, I will not let the wrong be the enemy of the right.
What's wrong with
And
$1.8 trillion?
That's what I'd like to know, Mr. Blitzer. What is wrong with the $1.8 trillion? What is wrong with getting your shit together in one bag and getting direct payments to the people immediately, like as now as possible?
You know what? Do you have any idea what the difference is between the spending that they have in their bill and that we have in our bill? Do you realize that they have come back and said all the...
Yes, I do, Madam Speaker. I do realize that because you know what? I actually read the bill that Nancy Pelosi is presenting and not budging 1 inch on. I've read this bill. And what she wants is she wants a lot of spending for municipalities and states that would, quite frankly, not be needed if the money was just given instead directly to the people, because it is from the people that the states and the municipalities derive their revenue sources from to avoid bankruptcy, to meet their obligations. Okay? All right, so I know what's in this bill. I actually read it, every word. And the concerns, Madam Speaker, in your bill would be, in part, not needed had you not cock-blocked emergency UBI measures previously proposed and the direct payments offered in the current bill that's being debated right now, just in order to win some sort of political score, which would accomplish exactly what? Let's listen to more.
These things for child tax credits and earned income tax credits or helping people who have lost their jobs are eliminated in their bill. Do you realize they pay no respect to the fact that child care is very important for people whose children cannot go to school because they're doing remote learning, and yet they minimize the need for child care, which is the threshold with which people, mothers and fathers, can go to work if they have that. Do you have any idea of how
That's precisely why, Madam Speaker.
short they're concerned?
That's why it's so important right now. Yesterday I spoke to Andrew Yang, who says the same thing. It's not everything you want,
but you know what?
there's a lot there.
Honest to God, you really, I can't get over it because...
I'm going to replay this again. Listen to this. Wolf Blitzer spoke to Andrew Yang. Okay? He was the guy with the solutions while everybody else wanted to argue. He actually wanted to solve the problems, which is why so many people love Andrew Yang and really supported Andrew Yang and are really disappointed that he ended up not being the nominee for the Democratic contender.
Which people, mothers and fathers, can go to work if they have that. Do you have any idea of how
That's precisely
just
why, Madam
woefully
Speaker.
short their concern.
That's why it's so important right now. Yesterday, I spoke to Andrew Yang, who says the same thing. It's not everything you
Yeah,
want,
but you know what?
there's a lot
Okay.
there.
Honest to God, you really, I can't get over it because Andrew Yang, he's lovely. Ro Khanna, he's lovely. They are not negotiating this situation. They have no idea of the particulars. They have no idea of what the language is.
Andrew Yang was the only candidate that had a policy page that read like the most in-depth, detailed pitch deck I had ever seen. Andrew Yang has an economics degree. He was licensed to practice before the bar. He was a lawyer. He has a law school degree. He has started businesses. He has started nonprofits. Andrew Yang wrote the book The War on Normal People, which you, Madam Speaker, should have been made to read. I mean, before passing a single measure that would either kibosh help for the people or not. Had you read that book, had you listened to somebody who knows what it means to solve real problems, the rest of America doesn't live in the D.C. Beltway. And, Madam Speaker, with all due respect, nor do we live in one of your three multi-million-dollar mansions. Okay? You didn't come to where I live in Erie County, Pennsylvania. You did not come and see the people where I live in my community who are living in trailers with rotting out floorboards with no heat in the dead of an Erie County winter. You didn't meet the families whose teenage girls are kept home at least a week every month because the families are too poor to afford feminine hygiene products because they don't have any money. Okay? You don't know how the rest of America lives. You don't know anything outside of your own little insular bubble. Now, it's not your fault that you have this good life, but it is, however, your fault for refusing to make yourself available of the knowledge of how the people you're paid to serve are having to live. And it is a drastically different America, Ms. Pelosi, than that which you live in. Okay? Feel me? Do you feel me?
Here, I didn't come over here to have. So you're the apologist for the Obama. Excuse me, God forbid.
Madam Speaker,
Thank God for
I'm not an
Barack
apologist.
Obama.
I'm asking you serious questions because
No idea of the particulars. They have no idea of what the language is. Here, I didn't come over here reading this. They are not. You really, I can't get over it because Andrew Yang, he's lovely. Ro Khanna, he's lovely. They are not negotiating this situation.
No, they're not negotiating this situation because you wouldn't raise their points at the negotiating table, and they don't have your position of power and privilege, Madam Speaker. They do not get to have a seat at the table. How convenient. They do, however, have their ear to the street, and they know what's going on. They know what's going on in Ohio. They know what's going on in Kentucky. They know what's going on in northwestern Pennsylvania by Lake Erie, where I live. They know what's going on down south. They know what's going on in Arizona. They know what's going on in Texas. They know what's going on in Oregon and Washington and California. They know what's going on in the rest of the country that you would never even deign to step foot into unless it was to go to a $1,500 plate donor dinner or something. I don't even think you'd even be able to figure out how to get onto an Amtrak and ride the Lakeshore Express from Cleveland to Erie, where I live. Never mind, get to meet anybody and see how our lives are compared to yours, okay? And yet you you claim that the people that the especially Andrew Yang, who had a more solid grasp of the situation for the majority of people in this country, with his, as evidenced in his book, The War on Normal People, than what you, Madam Speaker, have ever had in your long, illustrious career of craptastic assholeanism.
They have no idea of the particulars. They have no idea of what the language is here. I didn't come over here to have. So you're the apologist for the Obama. Excuse me. God forbid.
Madam Speaker,
Thank God for
I'm not
Barack
an apologist.
Obama.
I'm asking you serious questions because so many people are in desperate need right now. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
When was the last time?
Let me respond to you.
Let me ask you, when was the last time, Madam Speaker, when was the last time you spoke with the President about this?
I don't speak to the President. Speak
Why
with
not?
his
Why not call him?
representative.
Why not call him and say, Mr. President, let's work out a deal. It's not going to be everything you want, not going to be everything I want, but there are so many Americans right now who are in desperate need. Let's make a deal.
What makes me amused, if it weren't so sad, is how you all think that you know more about the suffering of the American people than those of us who are elected by them to represent them at.
Whoa. Whoa. Oh, wow. This just gets better and better. This just gets better and better.
At that table.
Nancy Pelosi knows exactly what it means to live in a state of perpetual material deprivation. She knows what it means to be homeless. She knows what it means to not even have the basic resources that would facilitate employability. Oh, wow. I mean, you know what? Talk about Dunning-Kruger effect. This is it. This is it, folks.
Good deal.
What makes me amused, if it weren't so sad, is how you all think that you know more about the suffering of the American people than those of us who are elected by them to represent them at that table. It is unfortunate that we do not have shared values with this White House, and that they have in their bill, why don't you talk about in their bill, a tax break for the wealthiest families in the country, while they cut out the earned income tax credit for the poorest families in our country.
Now, this right here shows just how clueless Nancy Pelosi is. The poorest people in this country are too poor to qualify for the earned income tax credit. Number one, you have to have a job or a form of earned income as opposed to passive income or Social Security income or disability income, and you have to have underage children. You have to have minor children to qualify for the EIC, the Earned Income Credit. Okay, so if you are if you have small kids, if you have kids and you are fortunate, at least fortunate enough to have a job, you know, whether it's 1099 contract work, whether it's W-2 employment, but it's classified as earned income, not passive income. Earned income. Okay? That you have to be at a certain threshold to even get that. And the poorest Americans don't even have that. Let me tell you something, Nancy. The poorest people in this country are those with zero incomes who aren't getting anything, who aren't even fortunate to have enough of an earned income and children in order to qualify for the EIC. Okay? Prior to COVID, there were, at last count, 13 million destitute Americans that had been permanently pushed out of the economy, who were, for whatever reason, denied help from what's left of the so-called social safety net programs. These are the poorest Americans. These are the poorest Americans who've been completely left out of everything, repeatedly repeatedly. And this number has grown exponentially since COVID. Just the other day in Washington Post, it was reported that 179 million Americans, and this is a direct result of you screwing the pooch, Madam Speaker, okay? You and other people in Congress and the White, everybody, okay? There's no innocent parties here. But just the other day in Washington Post, there was an article that said that 179 million Americans, that's almost half, a little over half the population of the United States. There are 930 million Americans. 179 million is slightly over half that number. And according to the Washington Post the other day, 179 million Americans are having their utilities shut off this month for lack of any money. Okay? You know, as the onset of winter is upon our doorsteps. And countless Americans are facing eviction and homelessness. Countless have been evicted and are homeless already, joining the already burgeoning permanent underclass, which had been ignored, you know, as the true depth, breadth, and scope of abject poverty in this country has been swept under the rug for the past 40 years. And now that pool of the permanently poor has finally grown to become too big to ignore, too big to deliberately conceal from the fallout but as a direct result of collapsing the floor from underneath the feet of the poorest of America's poor, going way back to the 1990s. Way back. Okay? The American people's lives, they're not up for debate here. And values, really, Madam Speaker, values, okay? Holding up a desperately needed round of stimulus checks for all the American people puts your values somewhere between the toilet and the sewer. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. There is nothing more despicable than using struggling, suffering constituents as human shields just to gain one-upmanship in a sick, twisted game of political chess. Do your job. Help the people. Doesn't matter who gets credit for what. That's a Pyrrhic victory. That's a Pyrrhic victory. What you want is a Pyrrhic victory. This is what Nancy Pelosi wants, a Pyrrhic victory. She wants to make sure that political opponents, whether justifiable or not, can't get any credit for helping the people. And she doesn't care how many people's lives are lost to achieve that gain, to get that score, to get that win. Exactly what is she trying to win?